And now, I told you we have the G for GAFA, or the A for alphabet. Let's see. We are really pleased to welcome Carlo ASARO, BIONDO, President EMEA Strategic Relationship for Google, as well as Yves Guestot for a 15-minute interview.
Thank you.
And this mic is yours.
Very much. Can I see? Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to welcome you.
Thank you.
Firstly, because you are a friend. It's not the first time to participate to our event here in Montpellier or elsewhere. And secondly, because during this first part of the session, we have talked mainly with very exciting disruptors. But every speakers, and particularly our representative, Soichi Nakajima, my colleague, or the chairman, Xavier, have developed the idea that we are in a complex games in which we have these new vertical disruptors. We have also legacy-born companies, but now involved in the digital transformation. And at the end, we have, of course, the big GAFA, and I think we have a slide which may illustrate the remark of Xavier about the very good health of the GAFA since February. Their market capitalization, of course, is more than the CAC 40 capitalization, but it's one side of the picture, and it's one story. There is, this story is at the end, the winner takes all, but there is another story, which is that we have very dynamic disruptors, and you can see on this, on the other part of the slide, that the unicorn go quicker to the state where the market capitalization reach 1 billion of value. So we are in this context, and it is in this context that we will talk. We can start with your position as an enabler of a new champion. You don't buy every new promising startup. And of course, I think that you can illustrate how you can support the emergence of new champions.
Well, in many ways. First of all, I would say the search engine itself has brought is a window to the world for SMBs and for companies around the world, and has brought the possibility to companies to sell all over the world without creating a sales force. It has made what was a fixed cost, commercialization, into a variable cost of sales. So this clearly has pushed for export from many countries, and export represent in every country we work the majority of the revenue we make with the companies in the country, in particular here in Europe. So Google is an enabler of export for small and medium companies as well as big ones. The second element is, I think we have invested significantly, and we want to continue to do that, to develop the ecosystem around for the web in the countries we are in, via programs like the Growth Engine program, where we invest up to $25 billion in a couple of years to train 1 million people to the technologies of the web. We've also created and collaborated with some schools in Poland, in Italy, in France, in many areas, where what we try to do is to develop skills for people which are not necessarily engineers that have done 5 years studies, but that can be doing the pragmatic works that the web needs. And then, you know, campuses. We have a campus in London. We have a work with Numa in Paris. We have a campus in Berlin, the factory. We have YouTube campuses around Europe. We are opening one in Madrid. We are opening one in Warsaw. So we believe that we are a significant player in contributing to the ecosystem of the web in Europe. Now, the big question is, what is the ecosystem of the web? Because with the arrival of the mobile phone and with the apps, what we believe today is the biggest change in economy is that we are entering into a world where the frontiers between industries collapse. Are you in telcos, or are you in some other sector when services in the house are given for security and safety? You see insurers propose them, telcos propose them, companies like Nest propose them. If you are in pharmaceuticals, and it's a new Alphabet initiative, there is a collaboration with Sanofi for diabetes. Are you in the pharmaceutical sector, or are you in the internet? And does the question have any sense? So we see that those changes make sure that the internet is becoming sort of like water, a small layer of any activity, and it's important to create platforms that enable that, like Android or Apple's iOS or even YouTube or such.
Could you give some example about partnerships you have in Europe with some startups?
First of all, I would like, sorry, for 1 second to say that I changed my job. You know, in the past, we had 2 structures in Europe responsible for our activities. I was responsible for Southern Europe, Eastern Middle East, and Africa, and mainly it was the sales activity, and a colleague from London was managing North and Central Europe and Scandinavia, so Germany, UK. And we have decided to change and to create one structure devoted only to partnerships. When we realized what I just said about the frontiers and the need of collaborating with other industries to develop a sound industry for tomorrow, and to make sure that the ecosystem goes versus the web and benefits of the growth opportunities it gives, we created a structure focusing on partnerships. And I'm responsible for that now for EMEA, and I'm following in particular the sectors with whom we have many touch points, or actually some difficulties in being understood and creating trust, which are the press, which are, of course, working with the telcos, the automotive sector, the travel sector, and the content industries in particular. And we have developed this year new partnerships, new alliances based on our products and based on defining very clearly what's the value we bring to consumers together, and not trying to go to consumers alone on certain things, but to make sure that the quality of the service and its ergonomy, which is always so important, are provided by the collaboration between companies. So I could mention, you know, Alphabet has got this famous partnership on in pharmaceutical sector. We have partnerships in the automotive sector on Android. We work with some telcos in France with Android TV, with Bouygues, with Free. We have partnerships with more than now 100 companies in the press. If you imagine last year that we would have had partnerships in a year with 100 companies in the press, I think nobody would have believed it. And so on and so forth. We are developing that in many sectors.
What may change the Alphabet holding company in the way you manage the innovation policy?
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to tell you why I think Alphabet was created, why I understand we did that. I think there are 2 reasons to that. The first reason is when Larry, which is a great CEO, was the CEO of Google, when you are CEO of a company that has the turnover and size of Google, you care for the short term on Google. And he wanted to make sure that in this new, I would say, we call it collaborative economy, or economy of partnerships, or economy where you cannot do things alone. It's not the time anymore of Superman alone. It's the time of people working together. He realized that he needed to focus on that. So I think he wanted to free up his time and of some members of his team to do this. This is one. The second reason is you need transparency. If you want to create trust, you need to be transparent to people, give numbers, explain them what you do. And the companies need to work arm's length one with another. So creating a series of companies that focus on specific issues like Nest for the home services, like Calico in certain aspects of pharmaceutical, life sciences, other aspects, and a chauffeur for cars, creates this ability to focus, to think to the future, and to partner, which I think are the key elements why Alphabet was created.
And Google Cars, for example, is managed directly by Google or by Alphabet?
So Google Cars is an Alphabet company. It's called Chauffeur, and it's part of the Alphabet new companies. It has a CEO that reports, who reports into Larry. On auto, I would like to clarify, because it's a very good example of this approach. We will not become an auto manufacturer. We believe there are some things in the automotive sector where, looking at consumers, change will occur. One, cars are not used 90% of time, because you drive them and then you leave them and then you take them. So 90% of the time they are not used, which is a waste of economy, of cost, of everything. And security and safety is important. We don't want people to die in streets or have injuries. And traffic in cities is too heavy. So the idea is, how can we, through technology, collaborate with car manufacturers in creating cars of tomorrow, which may not completely substitute or even partially, but complement the existing cars. And over time, we will see in sorting out those issues. So it always starts from a consumer problem, and then on, we have certain skills. They may not be enough to develop certain services, so we will collaborate with others in doing it. And I think we'll see in the future announcement of partnerships with automotive players on that.
You made an announcement 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 1 month ago, with a big pharmaceutical firm. Could you develop a little your interest for this
of course.
health
So
sector?
it's again an Alphabet company that did that, life sciences. The idea came from saying, look, we all have a mobile phone in our pocket, right? And if we can measure the vital parameters of someone via a contact lens, for example, that measures glaucoma, and if we can transmit that to the mobile phone regularly and monitor the status of someone, this data are valuable to imagine what sort of protection we can give to people from diabetes or other illnesses. Obviously, we cannot interpret the data. We are not capable of doing it. It's not our business. But the pharmaceutical company doesn't have the technology and the interfaces alone to create the service. So we specialized in one part of it, they specialized in the other part, but the sum of the two creates something more valuable, which is this service that none of us could build alone. And I believe that that example, multiplied by many types of illnesses and multiplied by many types of ideas, will create in the coming years a completely new economy of the web. I'm talking now as Carlo more than Google, but I am personally convinced, and I bet my life and my career on that in deciding to work on partnerships, that the era of companies trying to do everything alone is somehow changing. And it's now the era of the companies that are more capable of creating trust and working with others. And I'm trying with Google to become, this kind of company that enables others together to create something that's valuable for consumers. The consumer orientation stays, and you asked me before, what is the consumer orientation? I do believe that the big benefit that the internet companies had over the incumbents companies in every sector in the past is that they start from scratch. You can think about the consumer and create something that corresponds to a specific need. You don't have the responsibility of managing all that you have created, your process and your past. This is a big advantage in creating services. But now we enter into a world where it's more and more specialized, where the service is more and more specific, where in this economy of apps, you sort out a small issue, but very well. And this requires collaborations among companies much more than before.
Okay, we have seen the hybrid model of Youku. Youku is a little like YouTube that you know very well, and we have seen also that YouTube will develop a new pay-based model. Could you comment?
Yeah, well, again,
is it a shift, fundamental shift of YouTube, or is it an additional business model for new sources of revenue?
I think we have to experiment. We cannot stand still. Standing still in a world that moves is impossible. So we realize that there is a certain number of our users, in particular when they are on a mobile phone, which are interested in receiving a service that has no advertisement. They want to listen to music, they don't want advertisement. They want to see videos of music or something else, they don't want advertisement. So we said, okay, what can we do for those ones? Is there a way to provide them a service in which they can avoid the advertising? Of course, it has to be a paid service. Now we have the infrastructure, and we can collaborate also with others to distribute it, like telcos, for example, to develop services that are paid for the people which prefer a paid service to an advertising service. Now, if you ask me, is it a tectonic shift? How big will it be? In which part of the world will it work? I think only time will say. And what I love of Google is that it's not a company that has strong preconceived ideas. It's a company that has been able until now to move fast listening to customers. So if we see that this trend takes importance, if we see that many users want it, and if we see that we'll develop new things on that direction, if we believe that we will listen to the customer, I think, like we always did. So I honestly don't know what will be the level of effort that Google will put into that in the next years, but I don't think, honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Google knows either.
we are here in a EDAT event. It will be difficult to forget the difficult relationship between telcos and OTT. We will talk tomorrow morning during a special session about the regulatory issues, but could you add some comment about your present situation and partnership with telcos?
Well,
do you have, just to take a concrete example, project to develop your Google Fiber activities in Europe, or your Google fee project on mobile in Europe too?
Well, first of all, I think the relationship between telcos and what we call over the top are a relationship of love and hate. Sometimes there is competition, but in many cases it can be strong competition. But they are the both sides of the same medal. Google is now a particular operator because we bring 90% of our, the distance, we don't do the last mile, but 90% or 95, whatever it is, of the distance between the consumers and the content, we have it on our networks. We invest a lot into networks. We invest in data centers. We invest in what's needed to carry and balance the load of the content. So the relationship is complex, but it's improving. I think it's improving because, in particular, in Europe, we have common challenges. On the level playing field, I think we now have a position which most of the telcos would agree with, that the issue is not so much to block the innovation, because we will block service creation and revenue creation, but is to create a level playing field by liberalizing some rules which were created at the time where the telcos were alone on a certain market, which was defined and confined in a certain way. I think on data management, we made a lot of work to ensure that we respect privacy of people and that people can decide what to do, with our tools, with privacy tools, with my account and things. And I think the telcos also agree that data are an incredible opportunity to create services that have value for people. We spoke of health before, but we can mention any sector you desire. There are situations in which, with the respect of people, with attention to privacy, a wise and careful use of data creates services that are very important to people. So I think on this, we now agree that we need to create a framework that helps it to develop. Now with Android, if you think about Android, operators like Telefonica with Cyanogen have their own Android system on some phones, and they don't have Google applications. Some others are developing it. So I think we increased our flexibility. We developed platforms like Android, which are free platforms on which they can develop services. I would not forget that around Android, we distribute 7 billion to operators that develop applications, and that it's an ecosystem that enables others to do things. So I think our image, I hope and think, is changing. We are perceiving being more collaborative, more open, and trying to enable this collaborative economy. So if I look at how we relate together with telcos and how we relate with them last year, I think we went from a situation of not enough discussion, also because the only discussion possible was probably in Mountain View. Now we have a structure here in Europe that tries to do it. Of course, I always bring people to Mountain View because the products are there. Our company is led by product experts. But being here and developing the dialogue and listening to the environment and trying to become flexible, I think is a thing of value. And I hope, you should ask them, but I believe that the main telco operators start to appreciate that effort and the transparency we are trying to bring.
A very open last question for a very short answer. Yes. What will be the next big thing for Google?
The next big thing for Google? I don't know.
We will see.
I sincerely don't know, because there are many things we are on, and which one is the biggest is difficult to state. What I believe is that the next big thing for Europe is creating an environment for the app economy to develop. One number, today the app economy in Europe is 1.2 billion developers, and about, 6 to 7 billion economy if we count the revenues. It will be multiplied by 10, or 5 to 10 in the next 5 years. They say by 3 to 4 in the next 2 years, and 5 to 10 in the next 5 years. That's the birth of the biggest sector in Europe, if you want. It's an incredible opportunity. So for me, the next big thing is how do we collaborate together in building that in a way that it benefits the local economy, it benefits the incumbents that can add this layer to their service, to their business, and then become able to develop specific service for consumers. Sales, pre-sales, post-sales, everything is changing. And I think we have an opportunity together of building a world in which Europeans have better services with European companies through partnerships. That's the life I'll try to have, and I'll try to do it as best as I can.
Okay, thank you very much. We will come back to validate your answer.